I made a video talking about the relationship between the difficulty settings and the RNG elements in the game The Long Dark. 1 week later, there was a big update to the game. That update brought in many new features, including custom difficulty. Yep, you heard me right, custom difficulty. I spoke about wanting this in my previous video, and this one change has reinvigorated my love of the game and dealt with many of the problems that I had with it. This is even without mentioning the addition of a new area to the survival mode, Mountain Town, and bringing in the moose. An animal I list alongside kangaroos as one I refuse to believe actually exists until I see one in real life. I thought I would make another video that looks at how these new features add to the game, and how the addition of custom difficulty deals with the problems that I listed in my previous video. As I said in my previous video, I found the jump between Stalker and Interloper to be a particularly steep one, and I wanted to be able to fiddle around with the difficulty settings to be able to find a combination that was perfect for me. There are also many people who are unhappy with the way the wildlife works in The Long Dark, pointing out that if you were to meet wolves and bears in real life, they would not be anywhere near as aggressive towards you as they are in the game, mostly running away and trying to avoid you. Thankfully, the custom difficulty allows you to set the wildlife to be passive, mostly running away from you unless provoked, keeping the animals acting like they do in the Pilgrim game difficulty. However, while also being able to make the weather in the game harsh and the amount of available loot low, to still provide a difficult and challenging game experience while not having unrealistic animals. I tried this for a bit, and it did bring a different experience, being able to move around outside without having to worry about being attacked by any wolves or bears. However, I found the way wolves would always run away from you whining in blind panic whenever they saw you to be rather amusing, and it did jolt me out the game a bit. I felt like I was walking around with some kind of wolf-repellent force field. Looking at the custom settings for Pilgrim, I noticed the wildlife detection range for animals is low, so you have to get much closer to them before activating the wolf-repellent force field and causing them to run away. This worked. It didn't feel as unnatural as having the passive animals with the high detection ranges. But this is the beauty of the custom difficulty. It completely opens up the game to such a large variety of different experiences, and I feel that this is one of the most important additions the game has got in a long time. With 57 different categories you can customize, the different combinations are almost endless. You can also get a code that you can share with other players to have the same custom difficulty. Already I see debates and discussions on Reddit and forums of people working together to try and come up with the most realistic setup, and sharing their codes so that other people can experiment with them. I cannot explain how happy I am with this change, and look forward to hours of personal experimentation to find my Goldilocks zone of my perfect difficulty. It would be easy for custom difficulty to completely dwarf the other changes to the game, but custom difficulty isn't the only thing this big update brought. Here enters the moose. I find these animals ridiculous. There's just something about them. I know they exist since I've eaten moose sausage, but there's just this weird feeling I have that they're as equally as made up as unicorns, and it's all just this big joke I'm not in on. They look ridiculous, they run ridiculous, they make ridiculous noises. Moving on to what they add to the game, however, I find their implementation very interesting. They're like this mix between a deer and a bear. They are herbivores, which sounds friendly, but they're big, mean, and can really mess up your day. There is also one big change that makes hunting them a very different experience to hunting the other animals. When hunting wolves and bears, often you shoot them, and have the shot fail to kill them, only wounding. Over time, the bear or wolf will then bleed out, when you can follow the trail of blood to find its corpse, which you then cut up to get meat, pelt, and guts. However, moose are big and mean, and they take many shots to take down, unless you get a perfect headshot. they also don't bleed out, meaning that hunting them can take many bullets unless you are a perfect shot. So there is this interesting choice between getting closer to try and improve your chances of getting a headshot, or staying further away to be safer by knowing you're going to be using many more bullets. Me, being the fearless and courageous man that I am, decided on the first option, end up being headbutted and stamped on by an angry moose. Not once, but twice, leading to 2 very broken ribs. I managed to finally finish off the moose by shooting it when he was charging towards me the 3rd time. The broken rib is a unique effect brought on by a moose attack. I did notice that my clothing survived the 2 attacks amazingly well, taking very little damage. Instead, you are left with the broken rib affliction, which greatly reduces your max carrying capacity and max stamina, while also making you unable to climb until it heals. Did also mention that it takes 120 hours of sleep to fully heal. The second broken rib took 168 hours. These things really messed me up, and I felt the effects of this attack much longer into the game than a wolf or bear attack. It made travelling around the map much more difficult, and many areas really tricky to reach without being able to climb up mountain ropes. I had my main base in Milton at the time, and had climbed down some mountain rope to get to where the moose was. Getting these broken ribs meant that I couldn't find any way back up to Milton until they healed up, leaving me without the majority of my gear, having to scavenge around the map again, and having a few very close calls with some blizzards while my supplies were low. One of the most interesting changes is not the moose itself, but what you can make from its hide. Meet the moose satchel. This item is very unique in that it increases the amount you can carry by 5 kilograms. This is the first time the Long Dark has featured an item like this, and I was surprised to see it included. So far, you've had a maximum carrying capacity of 30 kilograms, which seemed humanly doable. You can only carry 1 moose satchel, so now the maximum carrying capacity is 35 kilograms. This is a significant step up, and makes inventory management significantly easier. I see inventory management as one of the main gameplay elements of the Long Dark, so being able to carry more makes many elements of the game much easier. There is also a moose jacket, which only requires a single moose hide to make. If you feel that what you really need in the moment is a good jacket rather than some extra carrying capacity, or you already have a moose satchel and are looking for something else. I am interested in seeing what else they bring into the game, as I feel the addition of the moose satchel has opened up the options somewhat. There is still a lack of a craftable piece of headgear, and I imagine at some point you'll get another animal that has craftable headgear. A fox fur cap perhaps? Only time will tell. For now though, the moose is a fantastic addition to the game, an animal that is rare, but intimidating, and a provider of some fantastic crafting options, and a whole load of meat. I am very happy with this addition to the game, and am interested in seeing what comes next. Now let's talk about the new area that has been added into the game, Milton. I like Milton. It has a very different feel to the other areas in the game, and it is the one that feels the most like a village. It brings a bit of civilization, where before we mostly just had wilderness, with the occasional house. It is also a fantastic area for loot, and I can see it being an area I prioritise getting to, so that I can see what awesome supplies I can find. The majority of the buildings you cannot go into. However, despite this being the case, the place is a goldmine for loot. What makes it interesting is that the only ways into and out of the area is through the use of mountain climbing rope, which can slow down getting loot out, also making it impossible if you have a broken rib. It does seem to have a reasonably large number of wolves in the area, and all the corners can make it quite dangerous if you're not careful. This brings an interesting feel to the area. I would say that it is a beginner's area, because the amount of loot you can find there. However, the high numbers of wolves can really mess up your game. Overall, I am very happy with the addition of Milton, and I feel it manages to fit with the other areas in the game so far, while also bringing in something different. One interesting addition is a farmhouse that requires a key to get in. This is the first time we have seen something like this in the sandbox survival mode. Often the key is nearby, but it can randomly appear in a number of different areas, so it requires a bit of exploring before you can enter. It can be dangerous if you're being chased by some wolves and I'm trying to get inside quickly before they attack. It is another interesting change, and I'm looking forward to see if they bring this key requirement to some of the other areas already in the game. In conclusion, I still love this game. The addition of custom difficulty has fixed the majority of my problems with it, and have me fiddling around trying to find that Goldilocks difficulty for months to come. The moose are awesome, and I love that Milton feels different and slightly more urban than the other areas. The addition of custom difficulty in particular make me feel that the game is in good hands, and I eagerly look forward to seeing what they add next. Thank you for watching, and happy moose hunting.